is Heather. Welcome to Your Mental Health Matters. Today's topic is the Chronicles of Relationships and Mental Health. So why are we choosing this topic? So we know that February is the month of love, but we know that not everybody enjoyed the season of love. Many people either became single during Valentine's, are in an abusive relationship. Many people are struggling with themselves. They don't know how to love, how to receive love. And we are here for you. For that specific target, we're here for you today. We want you to know that we hear you, we see you, and we accept you. We've been through it, and that's why we have these beautiful ladies that are going to share their story today, and also just make you know that whatever you're going through, whatever you've been through, there's a community here for you, and we are that community. So we hope that you do stay tuned, take in everything that's been said. If you do need help, we will further that later on as we go along. But stay tuned, enjoy. February is a month of love, but also is a month of healing, recovery, restoration, and reconciliation. So whatever it is to you, allow it to be your truth, and as we go along. So we're gonna introduce these beautiful ladies, starting with Dana.
Hello everyone, my name is Dana Farron, and I am the author of Transition, How to Get From Here to a Place Called There. My 9 to 5, I am a civil servant, and I'm also a transition coach. I help people transition from wherever they are to where it is they believe that God is calling them to. I also host a transition masterclass, I think once every 3 months. And in those classes, I literally talk about the different stages of transition like I do in this book. You can find out more about me on www.danafarron.com. That's Dana with a H. And yes, I look forward to speaking about celibacy and rejection.
Hi everybody, my name is Kimberly, and when someone sort of says introduce yourself, as women we can have many titles, so I'll give you a few of my titles. So I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm a friend. And sort of outside of that, in terms of my passion, I'm a qualified makeup artist and beautician. The name of my business is called Flawed. Now the reason why it's called Flawed is because it's not just about being perfect. Embrace your imperfections. That's also beautiful too. So yeah, that's a bit about me, and I'll pass you on to
Lioness Tamar.
Oh, what wonderful introductions. Hi everyone, I'm Tamar, otherwise known as Lioness Tamar. I am a domestic abuse and sexual violence survivor, advocate and practitioner. I run a circle called the Lioness Circle, which is founded by myself based on my own challenges of being a childhood sexual abuse and domestic abuse survivor. At my circle, we meet every Monday from 10 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. in Thornton Heath, and there is a wide range of holistic specialist interventive support that I provide for the women and girls, such as mentoring, coaching. We run workshops as well. One of the key tools is about how to overcome challenges. So I use my 5-step process to overcoming challenges, and the ladies are able to identify with it and apply it in their own lives to create their own foundation, their own basis of rebuilding their life after abuse. Outside of that, I also run my own private clients as well. Well, I have my own private clients where I still utilize this 5-step process, which I call my blueprint to overcoming challenges the Lioness way. You'll hear a little bit more about it, but yes, I've also got my book launch coming up. Yes. It's on the 13th of March, and it's going to be in Croydon. And essentially, it's about how I got from being a childhood sexual abuse survivor to becoming the person I am today, of running my own circle and empowering women and girl survivors all over the world. So please do come along. We'll post the address and the flyer so you'll be able to see, because it's part of an event that, it's called Survivors Thriving. So we're going to be thriving all day on the 13th of March. Thank you.
Wow. So such black girl magic. That's what I was thinking. But yeah. But my name is Davina Dobbs Akereli. In my 9 to 5, I am a peer link worker, so that is just supporting vulnerable adults back into the community. I'm also a qualified counsellor, and that was birthed out of my own challenges and not necessarily in the BAME community, not necessarily seeing you when you walk into the counselling room. So that was one of the things that propelled me to want to be a qualified counsellor. And my website is www.timingcounselling.com. So check it out.
And sorry, I know I'm just going to be a typical beautician now. I forgot to plug my website. So please, I forgot to plug my little website. So guys, you can find me on www.flawed, which is FLAWEDMUA.com. Thank you.
Thank you, because yes, I'm on and that is www.lionesstamar.com.
Perfectos, guys. So we hope you jotted down every note. We will, as they speak, they will reinforce what's been said earlier. But this is the people that we have for you today, carefully selected just for you. So when we think about relationships, guys, before we go into our main topic, what would one word? What would you name? One word. Think of one word. How would you describe relationships? Just one word.
A journey.
A journey.
Self-love.
Self-love.
It's the foundation.
Strength.
Strength.
Mine is not a phrase. I'll say it starts with you.
Yeah. Perfect. And guys, what do you say? What do you say a relationship stands for you? For others, it may mean so many things, but we want you to just know that to be whole is everything. So just make sure that before you go in there, you're not looking for another half. You're looking for another whole. Okay? So now we're going to go into a spoken word by Kim, as she expresses herself, and she will also be talking about why she wrote it.
So I feel like for me, I know I sort of introduced myself as a beautician, but something in terms of what I feel is a gifting is this spoken word. I've been sort of dabbling in spoken word for about 8 years now. It first got birthed when I was going through a situation. And I remember I was so frustrated, so hurt, so upset. And something just said, take a pen and take a piece of paper. And I just started writing, and it didn't stop. And then something else happened, and I've done the same thing again. And then something else happened, and I've done the same thing again. And I started to realise this was actually a gift. I'm going to do 2 pieces today. The first one, I'm going to be speaking about a dysfunctional relationship and the 2 individuals in that relationship. Such a shame that we couldn't pull through. Don't you know that I really loved you? When things were good, never wanted it to stop. You made my world, I was on top of the world. That's what they say. I can confirm, I felt that way. When I thought of my future, you was in my frame. I pictured me having your last name. I would imagine our lives together, such joy I felt. You and me, against the world. Together, there was nothing we couldn't achieve. Build an empire so great, they're not ready for you and me. The connection we formed was more than just surface. We connected on levels, deep conversations in surplus. You see, things were once good. I never wanted it to cease. But I guess the bad times began to increase. You would no longer compliment me. I would no longer smile. We argued some more. Happiness. It's been a while. You said I complained. You couldn't get anything right. Or was it that you just stopped trying and gave up on the fight? My issues spoke to your issues. Tears of pain. Relationships strained. Positive interactions no longer maintained. Your insecurities spoke to my insecurities. They fondled and cuddled more often than we did. No longer hiding, active participants in public, at home, when we were both alone. Let's not forget about our past, infiltrating where there was a gap. Agape love, what is that? A love without gaps? We had so many. Now I see we came into this relationship both wounded. As we took off our bandages, the cuts were still bleeding. The dysfunctional mentality continually leading. As you bled on me, and I bled on you, feeding the past and all we've been through. Your insecurities scream louder, mine screamed even more. We won't let go, we ain't walking out that door. You see, we're at home, as we rip your relationship apart. You invited us in, so we will not depart. Matter of fact, we feed rejection, childhood trauma, no objections. We feed mistrust, abuse, no self-control and lust. We feed division, perish without a vision. Now I'm running rampant in your relationship. Your ship is sinking. You're both about to drown. I screamed at you, tears colliding down my face, needing to feel your embrace. As my low self-esteem rears its ugly head, you don't value me, I shout, as you lay in the bed. You look at me all confused. I look back at you. Can't you see my heart is bruised? You're too tired to argue, so you turn away. The validation I needed, the affirmation I craved, gave way to rejection as she led the way. As my inward man broke in two, rejection went out and got her crew. It wasn't just the events of that night. The rejection of past hurts came with all their might. It's been like this for weeks. My heart couldn't take no more as it started to race 100 miles per hour in my chest. My self-esteem becoming less and less. As my heart is beating, the pain is not depleting, it is increasing all over my body as I fall to the floor. I need her out, where is the release door? So I pick up a blade and I slice my wrist. Erase the pain, I must persist. As the pain seeps out from my limbs, the pain seeps out from within. You've changed now. You say it's hard to see past the trauma. You blame me for how you feel. The victim in you takes the wheel. Matter of fact, he was always there, but never came out this apparent and clear. I saw glimpses of him in the way you processed the actions of others, the way you would discount all your past lovers, never holding yourself accountable for the role you played. I guess I see it now, never wanting to take the blame. Did it stem from your childhood, a man on the exterior, but that little boy is screaming from your interior at the top of his lungs? You did it, not me. I refuse to take any responsibility. I was once abused and felt immense pain, and somehow I turned around and abused you the same. I'm not an abuser, I don't fit the criteria, because on the exterior I'm manly, pristine and established, but what comes with me is a whole lot of invisible baggage. As my public persona loses its facade, I feel less of a man. Somehow you got close, you glimpsed who I really am. So what do we do now? As we depart and go our separate ways, the dysfunction continues just on another day, another relationship, another soul tie. But you didn't deal with the root, and then you wonder why. You're in this continuous cycle. The same scenario plays out again and again. What you really need is to break habits, behaviors and trends, destructive patterns, old ways of thinking, the cycles where you end up drinking, addiction, self-affliction, past hurts, past traumas, abuse in many forms, where feeling dysfunctional becomes your norm. Denial, self-loathing, low self-esteem, self-doubt becomes a reoccurring theme. The scars of the past, full of issues, damaging our emotional tissues. When do we stop? Healing is waiting. The I am, Father in heaven. He always has a plan. All things work together, not just the good but the bad too. You see, my perspective is from eternity. I knew what you would both go through. You didn't include, you chose to exclude that free tear cord not easily broken. In times of trouble, why was my name never spoken? It's not too late to break the cycle. Don't just recycle, but your flesh must be restrained. My word must be sustained. Healthy behaviors must be maintained, and your mind must be retrained. Renew it on a daily basis to break strongholds and unhealthy embraces. Prince of Peace that surpasses all understanding. You go through this process, I guarantee a safe landing. Trust on me, Lean on me, depend. I'm your greatest ally, I'm your greatest friend. I've held you up until now. I won't drop the ball. I've got you in the palm of my hand, I will not let you fall. To the point that you can't get back up. Your testimony's too great for the above to be your fate. Book the counselling, address the flesh, draw close to me, and I will do the rest.
Wow. Wow. Very in-depth and intense. So tell us the history about what the spoken word meant for you.
I think this particular piece for me is quite raw, so it's something that is quite recent. So I feel like for me, it was by going through a breakdown of a relationship and really just at one night just feeling so overwhelmed with the pain and trying to process, as sometimes you're trying to process what went wrong, if I done that, if he didn't do that, and then you're trying to just process and work through those feelings and those emotions. And for me, again, I just sort of just picked up it was my phone this time, it wasn't paper and pen, and I just started to write, and that sort of came out. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that came out is things that I've explored, because I go counselling myself. So it's things that I've actually looked into in terms of counselling when I went through the breakdown of this relationship. Certain things that I spoke about were things that I had a chance to look into. So I kind of feel like with this spoken word, it's probably one of my deepest. I kind of was just raw with it, and I wanted to give my experience and how I felt. And one of the things that sort of I'm really confident in is I know that when it's all said and done, all things work together for my good. And when it's all said and done, God is the key and the source to my healing. But at the same time, I'm not delusional, because I also know that having the kind of physical stuff like counselling is also very important, because we're holistic beings. We're not just spiritual beings. We're mental, we're emotional, so all of those other areas need to be addressed. So I feel like when I ended it was ended on the collaboration of counselling with God.
I love that. So guys, you can have Jesus in counselling, no shame. Don't feel shame about going to counselling. It's very important. Don't stay isolated and don't stay alone. Okay, so you in your spoken word, you talk about two dysfunctional people coming together. How does that look like?
Well, from my experience, when two dysfunctional people come together, because you don't really show your dysfunction in the beginning. You're going to see me with makeup. You're not going to see me without makeup in the beginning. I'm going to come to you perfected. So I kind of feel like when two dysfunctional people come together, even though you try to hide that dysfunction, it will come out. It comes out in behaviours. It comes out in the way that you interact with each other. It comes out with your communication. It comes out in terms of when you're in public and how you operate in a public setting. It comes out when you're alone. It comes out when you're together. It comes out
challenges.
When
you're both faced with challenges, it could be introduced to them to the family, or going out and your food is late, or just like ordinary challenges. You see how the person respond to it, and of course, like you said, with the mask, it's very easy for people, but over time, like you said,
it always comes out, and that's the thing. And if you don't really deal with the root, one of the things that Dr. Heather is a qualified counsellor, and her business, the name of her company is called Free Your Mind Counselling. And I'm going to do a little plug for Dr. Heather, because she can plug her website. I'm going to plug it for you. All right, it's www.freeyourmindcounselling.com. www.freeyourmindcounselling.com. And one of the things, I think I've lost my school of thought. I've been plugging websites. I've lost the thought.
Okay.
I've lost my
In
thought.
terms of dysfunction, how it shows up.
Yeah. So it kind of shows up. Just in terms of blood, I really lost my thought now. I've lost it.
So you were saying this is where Dr. Heather comes in terms of being a counsellor.
And that he starts from the root.
Oh yes. See, Satan, you are a liar, not today. Right. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of the times we try to deal with the dysfunction from the branches, and it's really about dealing with it from the root, you know. And a lot of times, just to deal with the reality, people don't like to deal with the root.
Yeah.
Because when you deal with the root, you're going deep and you're going down, and it's not nice and it's painful, and also it's quite a long process because you've got to go right below. To clip the branches is very easy and painless. So I feel like just by and that's something like Dr. Heather, that's one of her key points, is it deal with the root, not the fruit. Yeah, you know, so I feel like in terms of just even beginning to address dysfunction, beginning to even look at it for what it is, you need to be willing to go to the root.
And how do you think you get to that process of willingness?
From reaching rock bottom. Because a lot of times when things are okay, you kind of just sail with life. It's okay, you know, comfort zone, nothing's really, the storms ain't really blowing. But I kind of feel what makes a lot of individuals kind of stop and think is when they hit rock bottom.
Because the thing is, no one, like you said, it's so painful, and it's by no means like, you know, an easy process to do. And the longer we cover it up, the more layers get built on layers, and therefore the more challenging it gets to pierce the core. And no one really wants to voluntarily put themselves through that, especially if they've got a good job, they've got the life that society tells them that they should have. So who's going to want to jeopardize that, really and truly? But like you said, when you do hit rock bottom, I say when the roof tumbles down, you've got no you've got no other choice but to act. When a black man's back is against the wall again, you know, he has to act. And it doesn't mean have to be a black man, but that's bless Malcolm X, that's the saying. But yes, when enough is enough, when there's nothing more to that's stopping you or holding you back, you like everything previously was like excuses, valuable excuses nevertheless for that period, but it gets to a point where all of that just goes out the window. And
and I think it's about that alone time, because when you have so much noise going on around you, so you might be working at church, you might be a mum, you might be a dad, and it's just about that alone time, because you've got to be honest with yourself in that broken, dysfunctional, you know, for me, on the floor bawling, on the floor bawling, right? You have to, for those who don't know what bawling means, on the floor crying, in a hysterical state, you know, you have to kind of wipe those tears, because then you've got to release, so you've got to do the crying because you need to release, you can't suppress, delayed healing, and then you've got to wipe those tears, and then you've got to sort of say to yourself, you know, and I remember one of the scriptures, David encouraged himself, you've got to say to yourself, enough is enough, I cannot go through this another time, another year, another day, another relationship, another cycle. And you've got to have that conviction based on you, not based on your man, not based on your woman, not based on your children, not based on your status, not based on nothing, but based on you.
That's it.
Wow. You choose you.
So just to end this part of the topic, what does dysfunction look like? Because a lot of people are functioning in dysfunction. It looks normal to them because that's what they know. So this is for all of you guys, but we'll start with Kim. What does dysfunction look like?
What does dysfunction look like?
Well, how does your dysfunction look like?
I think I said it in the spoken word. I think that covered everything.
Let's pick it out, because some people may say, you know what, I shout all the time because I'm used to it, because, you know, I saw my mum shout all the time, so it's okay. You know, I slap my children, it's okay because my mum did it, my dad did it. You know, I refuse to go to work because I feel like, you know, the man should do everything, or, you know, so what does dysfunction look like?
Dysfunction is personal. I don't feel like one dysfunction, Dana's dysfunction may not be my dysfunction. So I feel like it's personal.
So if you name one.
So dysfunction could be insecurity, paranoia.
Mine's quite long-winded, I think. I can never just say one word. I'll only go back to my example, my experience. I had the title, being a minister, I looked the part, I wore the white collar, you know, every first Sunday, but then I was going home to poverty and depression, where I thought at least one point, for a good 3 months, my curtains never opened. But then on the outside, I looked amazing, but the truth be told is that that was dysfunction, you know, and it's when I finally came face to face and said, you know what, enough is enough. I don't just want to look the part, I want to be the part. And that's when, one by one, bit by bit, the Lord just started to deal with those deep-rooted issues. And He's still dealing with them, because I find, you know, dysfunction, it can be in layers. So as you deal with one layer, another one presents itself. And it's just about being bold and being confident in who you are and in who God is and what He says about you. And just, you know, say, Lord, hold my hand whilst I deal with these dysfunctions. Because you don't have to do it by yourself. You do it with Him.
Brilliant, I agree with you, definitely. But I suppose my version would be fear. When you do things out of fear of whatever you think the consequences is likely to be, rather than doing things because you want to, because you understand how it serves your purpose. You understand the bigger contribution that your act is going to bring about. But if it's not that, and you're doing it, for example, as a child, and you know, we threaten our children, if you don't do this now, I'm going to slap you. That's the dysfunction already starting to build up. You could be in a toxic relationship, and you have to kind of tiptoe around your partner. You know, feel like you're walking on eggshells. You don't want to do this, you don't want to do that, and all of it is because of that fear of the repercussion. For me, that's the basis. And even for yourself as well, you may not want to do stuff because within yourself you don't trust yourself. We've all been there, right? It's like, yes, I'm not going to stay at his house tonight because I don't trust myself. Girl,
is that dysfunction or is that just plain lust? What's that about?
Well, there are signs there within your own core, and I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't stay, but it's the basis upon which we make these decisions. I'm saying is the.
All right, I understand. Yeah. I agree.
If you're like, no, I love myself and I'm not ready to give myself to you, that's different.
Not confident, I need to say no.
So it's the fear.
Can I just cut in? I thought of another dysfunction based on what you just said. Could another form of dysfunction be someone who has been so used to being single that when true love is trying to find them, because of the fear of being rejected or going through what their mother or great grandmother had gone through, they just reject it and then they therefore run.
Self-sabotage is one of the biggest dysfunctions. And my book, like the second chapter of my book that's coming, it's about, you know, my years of self-sabotage when I finally came out of the abuse. But yes, that's
a deep one.
Big
That's a deep one. You know?
Yeah, I think dysfunction is something that causes you not to operate in your God-given purpose, and I think it's something that also can blind you physically, mentally, emotionally, and I think as well dysfunction can show up differently depending on the environment and who you are with. And I think it's important to remember that it is a layer, it's not just one thing, but there's always a foundation of that dysfunction, and then layers are just poured on top of it. And relating it back to my life, I'll say my mum was straight low self-esteem, and that showed up in many areas. I would do anything to try to keep a man around me, even though I knew it was wrong. But reality, if I was to bring it back, I didn't feel loved by my parents. So I think it's important, like what Kimberly and Dr. Heather said, identify that root. And I think on top of that root, the branches are your dysfunction based on your foundation. So that for me is
and
what
I think
dysfunction.
A key point that Davina said, and sometimes we don't realise, is one area of dysfunction can filter in so many other aspects of your life. And when you really track back and you think, wow, I've been operating from that dysfunctional me from
when you was a
from
child.
when I was a child, and it filters out in the way you perceive things. It might even filter out. You're in the car driving and you start going crazy because someone crossed you. You know, so it can filter out in
different ways.
So it's a really it's quite a big thing. You know. It's quite a really a big thing.
And in saying that, I don't think you ever get to the place where, me personally, when you don't have dysfunction, but how you operate and maneuver and react changes. Because I think sometimes when we talk dysfunction, we need to get rid of it. No, that's inhuman. We're not God. Only God is perfect. But I think it's about knowing how to maneuver it effectively.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that a weakness is different from a dysfunction.
Yeah.
Because a dysfunction is something that can destroy you if you don't deal with it.
Yeah.
Whereas a weakness is something that you know, okay, I have this and I'm able to tame it, manage it, or just ensure that it doesn't come out in a way that it directs and controls my life, that it stops me from being the person I'm supposed to be. So this is where you can see whether it's a dysfunction, where it's breaking who I am as opposed to me stepping into who I truly am as well.
Well, I suppose if you don't identify your weaknesses, which is why it's, you know, that ongoing personal growth is so essential,
Self-awareness,
because if you're not identifying your weaknesses, this is when they become
And
dysfunction.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's just all over.
Yeah.
But when we move on to Dana, we're going to be talking about celibacy and rejection.
Ooh.
So let's understand, because I know there's a lot of you guys that maybe
Sip some water, get your coffees, girl.
you may be wondering how can celibacy, affect my mental health, or how can it, disrupt me as a person? How is it filtering, as Kim said, in different areas of my life where I'm either rejecting it or I've put on this persona of independent woman, because we're not really meant to be independent women, come on. But, how is it affecting my life? So we're going to hear a bit about what Dana has to say now regarding this subject.
So this subject is quite interesting, because this is the first time I'm talking about my journey in that particular area. That's an area where I've had a love-hate relationship, because I've never really gone by the title celibate. This is the first time where, because for me it's my lifestyle, but then because I knew I was coming here today, I actually thought, okay, Lord, the researcher in me, well, let me just research what this word means, because there's loads of movements, celibacy and keeping purity and all of that. So I was like, okay, Lord, let me look into this. And the definition of being celibate is actually the choice to not only to abstain from sex, but to also remain unmarried. So when I read that, I was like, Lord, that's not my portion, because I do not want to remain unmarried. I am speaking into the atmosphere.
Amen.
I am going to be married.
Blame the team.
So I wouldn't say I'm going by that, I'm celibate. Okay, well, I am abstaining from sex. And if I can go as deep as I can, those who know me, I'm very raw with my testimony. The reason why I've had such a love-hate relationship, and it was quite emotional when I thought about it. Last year was a process that I had to go through, and I boldly say Dr. Heather is my counsellor, and I truly thank God for her life. And this is one of the areas that God has used her to walk me through, because it was quite confusing. And I tell you why. Because in the beginning of my childhood, between 5 and 6, I was molested. So I had a very thought view of, my purity and about, who I am as a young female. There was a lot of confusion with my identity. And then going through that, I blocked it, I suppressed it. So we talked about dysfunction and not dealing with the root. So that was something, didn't understand it, so I suppressed it. And then at the age of 12, I was sexually assaulted by a guy who I dated. So already there's the confusion again. Now, it wasn't, I'm sorry to be raw again, but hey, this is the platform, so I'm going to use it. It wasn't, studying law, it wasn't rape, but it was nearly rape. There were things that were done that could have easily been classed as indecent assault, whatever, but thank God it never went the full way. So medically speaking, when I go to the doctors, they're like, if I can be real, I know I'm putting myself out there, but they're like, you don't have to have the test. Ladies, we know what test I'm talking about. 25 years old and up, because you are a virgin. So when I first heard that at the age of 25, I was confused, because I was like, am I? Because of the things I experienced. And then obviously going through my process of deliverance and counseling, many, women of God who God had sent in my life, and also men of God, poured into me, prayed over me. They were like, Dana, you are a virgin. But I really fought with that. I really fought. I was like, God, but I don't feel like it. But last year, that process was completed. And God began to really pour into me and say, Dana, before me, you are pure. The enemy tried to take you out in that way. He tried to, to mess you up in that area. But, by the grace of God, you are still whole. So I can confidently say that I am still a virgin, and I am 29 years old. Yeah. I say it's not easy, and it hasn't been easy. And you know, because from the age of 17, there was always the promise of you're going to be married. And so imagine from 17, I'm holding out. I'm still female. I've still got feelings. The struggle is real. But you know, there's all the reason why I believe I've been able to remain celibate. Number one, it's by the grace of God. But secondly, it's the awareness of my purpose. I have such a strong conviction of what God has called me to do and who He has called me to be. Because one of the things God's teaching me is that there is a difference between you doing for me and being. And so in this season,
can you say that again?
There is a difference between doing and being.
Wow.
And so from January of this year, God has literally told me to shut everything down. He hasn't allowed me to. This is the first, you know, engagement I've taken this year. He says, I don't want you going doing any events or anything, because in this season I just want you to be. And that was quite powerful for me, because I was like, okay, God, let me research. What do you mean by being? He's like, Dana, I don't want you to do things so I can love you, because the truth is, whether you do it or you don't, I still love you. And this is something that I've seen, you know, from many people who have come to me for advice about relationships. There's this constant need to do in order to be loved by the other person. And God had to deal with me, said, Dana, because of the amount of rejection and all the things you've been through from, you know, the age of 5 till let's say, you know, in my late 20s. So He's literally called me to a season of celibacy, Lord, or in the unmarried part, you know, to really cut away some roots. Because one of the things He said to me, He said, Dana, I don't want you going into a relationship thinking you have to do in order to be loved. You have to enter your marriage from a place of being, and from a place of being who you are. And I believe identity is such a key thing when it comes to relationships. Because a lot of people, they go into relationships thinking that it's the relationship that makes them themselves. And I just believe that, you know, God's love for me, He just refused to allow me to do that. Because truth be told is that, you know, a few years ago, when I was really crying, I think 25, around the age of 25, I became so impatient with God. So I started crying, you know, I started bawling on the floor, weeping and wailing. I mean, it got so bad that around 26, I couldn't even eat, because I became so absorbed with being found. I was like, God, why is it, you know, and I used to use this on God. Well, I've kept myself, why hasn't He come? And I had the unmitigated goal to say to God as well, look at all the other people. That was me being self-righteous. You know, well, they've not kept themselves and they're married. They've gone before me. And the Lord says, this is not about whether you kept yourself or not. When it's my time for you to be married, you will be married. And truth be told, when I finally, you know, yielded and surrendered to the Lord in terms of me being single, I recognized that it wasn't about the person finding me. It was actually about my own process. So the process was about me finding myself, finding out about who I am in Him, and also dealing with the generational roots. Because people fail to realize is that when you enter a relationship, you're not just dating the person, you're dating their father's father, you're dating their mother's mother. So there are dysfunctions, there's trauma, there's so many traumas and things that have literally trickled down through generations. And so from the age of 25 till now, the Lord said, Dana, I'm calling you on a journey, hence the book Transition. Because one of the things I heard from Bishop Noel Jones, he said this, he says, you know, when you're going through a process of transition, you never go out with anyone, never accept a relationship, never submit to someone, never promise a person, oh, you know, I'm going to date you or let's get married. Because here's the thing, when you enter the person who you are, when you enter the process of transition, that's not the person you're going to be when you come out. So you might like the person now, but when you go through the process, when you come out of it, you won't like them. And can I just tell you, that has been my journey. There are people that I like. There's a guy, you know, I'll testify about it. I was so sure that he was my husband. And already this show is going, the notes I've completed. I really liked him. And so bad, I was having visions that this guy was my husband. And if I can say this, Dr. Heather, that I know that this is a trap that a lot of single women, I may never get the forum to say this, but there are a lot of women in Christendom, in the church, that are literally stuck because they have seen a man in their dream and they're saying, God showed me that that man is my husband. That's a lie. That is not God. That is literally a trap of the enemy to keep you single. And I tell you why, I went by that for 3 years believing that this guy was the one. And I'm telling you how much my soul took over my spirit, man. My heart took over my ability to hear God. And the thing is, all the things I was seeing, those things were manifesting in the beginning. But because I started to put my trust in my dreams more than even when God was saying, red flag, run for your life, I was still hoping and waiting for this person, and it never happened. And it's not that I'm speaking from a place of disappointment. I'm speaking from a place of, Lord, thank you. I am so glad, because now God has pulled me out of the process. I am in a place where I'm like, I don't even like you. You're not my type, not in terms of how you look. And where God, and sorry, Lord, and where God has elevated me to, He wouldn't fit where I am now. In terms of spiritually, and also the kind of people that I roll with in my 9 to 5. It just would be such a mess. So one of the things I always tell, I speak to young women and young men, I believe in the process. It's hard. But you know what? Go through the process. Let God rip out the roots. That's the purpose of celibacy. If we're going to use that word, that's the purpose. If you're in a place where you're single, rather than crying to God every night about why you're still single, say to the Lord, you know what, God? I'm still single. Show me. Show me what I need to deal with. What skills do I need to acquire? What things do I need to learn about me? Not just about me, but, if you're still single, maybe learn to cook a new meal. Maybe go to the gym, work on your health. Maybe, involve yourself in ministry. If that's not enough, and I'm talking now about the urges, because, come on, we're, as women here, we are natural, we're human, we have the urges. How, because many times I see people, they talk about celibacy, but we skirt around the issue. What do you do, woman, in the midnight hour when you wake up and you're turned on? What do you do?
What do you do?
What do I do?
What do I do? Do you know what I say? Fix it, Jesus. I pray, I speak in tongues. I mean, no, I do. No, seriously, I'm like, Lord, no, I'm just being honest.
Can I say something? Okay. You know why she's saying that? Because she ain't had it. When you had it and you realised it's 2 minutes, you...
Maybe that's true.
I think I should cut that.
No. And let me tell you why. No, because I've heard that. People say to me, but here's the thing. I'm just being real with you. But my body still feels the urges. And people say, but Dana, how do you do it? Literally, I tell you what I do. I'm a workaholic. That's how I've had to deal with it. So by the time I'm finished with my 9 to 5, I am absolutely tired and exhausted. But you know what I do? I go home, I probably pray, read the word, I probably, watch a few series that's exciting for me, or I, plan for the next day. So most times I'm really exhausted by 12 midnight. I purposefully do that because I've recognized the patterns. Now, I've not always been perfect, in terms of, certain struggles I've had. But the Holy Spirit began to show me, because I was like, God, I'm struggling with this and I don't want to mess up. You don't just fornicate by having sex with someone else. If we're going to be real, we're talking about celibacy here. There are things that people do, like masturbation. It's a grey area in the scripture, but in terms of my personal convictions, it's not okay. That's my personal conviction. So because I know that is an area that I've had to really guard my mind. One of the traps the enemy tried to set for me, and we're being real here, was reading. I'm an avid reader. I like to read, and especially when I was coming into my own, I started reading lots of books, because I was independent by the age of 17. So there wasn't anyone teaching me what to expect and what changes I was going to go through. So being an independent learner and researcher as I am, I thought, something's going on here. Let me go and get books for women and find out what this is. But then it actually worked against me. I noticed that doors were open and certain things just started happening and struggles, and I was like, God, why is this? So one of the things that God, and He's still working on me in that area, but one of the things I've had to set in place, my sister says, Dana, you're a grown woman. Why are you acting like a child? There's certain films I don't watch. I can't. I try not to. And there are times as well I've fallen and I've watched certain things, but then I believe God had to allow me to do that for me to see the effects. So I see the difference when I've watched the film that probably had, sexual references in it, and I see what it does to my emotions. And then I see what happens for a period of time when I don't watch those things. So one of the things I've had to set, and I'm setting for myself, are boundaries. Be careful what I watch. Be careful, what I listen to in terms of conversations, because I'm speaking to people. I'm not dating, but, God has allowed me where there's certain guys that have approached me throughout last year, and, they've spoken to me. And one of the things I've had to learn from some of those experiences is that certain times of the night, you ain't got no business being on the phone. Because certain times of the night, it will cause certain conversations. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, I'm not having sex, but you're having phone sex. And that's still not okay. So it's setting boundaries and also being able to put your foot down. That even if the opposite sex starts to say certain things, you can say, hold on a minute, I'm a child of God. That's not okay. And I've had that, where I've had to say to the guy, with all due respect, I really respect you. And it could have meant that, you know, we lost the whole relationship, but oh well, my purity matters. It's not just a sin when we actually do it in a bedroom, but God is also watching what happens before and what is your conversation like on the phone. So I believe as a single woman, there are boundaries that you have to set in place if you want to remain celibate. People say I'm old school. If you're dating, maybe have a chaperone. If you know that you're in heat and you're on fire, talking about your loins, glory, you know, you have someone that is chaperoning you. You're not out there in the midnight hour in the brother's car or in the sister's car because you know what's going to go down. So it's just putting things in place that will help you to stay pure and to stay, you know, decent and in order. Slowly. Yes. I hope I've, you know, mentioned, I know I've got the rejection part, but there's, you know,
that's
What's that brief thought? That was
Wow,
I know I just went straight into it, but yeah, it's like I said, it's the first time I've spoken. I've kind of let myself out there and put it out there. But you know, I just want to reiterate the point that it's not easy and it takes discipline. And hear what I'm telling you: there are times when you will fail in your thoughts, because whilst you're keeping it pure, I'm putting myself out there again. You might be keeping yourself pure naturally, physically, but is your mind right? And there are many times I have to say, Lord, I'm sorry. I repent. Because
what did you repent of?
Because especially when you see a certain guy that's really cute when it's on TV or, you know, in the workplace or on the bus, and you know, something just crossed your mind. You're like, oh God, fix it, reel it back in, like
read it in.
Yeah, I repent. Lord. So I'm normal. I'm not, you know, I'm not like, you know, righteous like Mother Teresa. I'm not saying Mother Teresa. We don't know if Mother Teresa had any urges or anything, but I'm just letting you in. That's how I've dealt with it. And there are times when I've even gotten emotional because there's a frustration when you're like, how, you know, I'm feeling this, but I can't do anything with it. So what am I supposed to do? And one of the things I've said to God, I said, God, I'm feeling this right now. And the Lord's like, invite me in. And can I just share this secret with you? The Holy Spirit said to me, Dana, do you notice when you feel like that? It's when you feel alone, but it's when, you know, you're right now you're craving intimacy. Why don't you turn that craving into worship? And so as I started to worship, and as I started to just pray and praise Him and lay prostrate, I'm not going to lie, this is real. The urge, it leaves me. And I realized that the truth be told, many people just say, oh, I just want sex, and they go and they fornicate. But before you go and fornicate, and before you go and call, you know, your friend with benefit, you know, take that time. Just actually take, and I'm not saying that to throw dick, because, you know, it happens. There are people that have, you know, it's not just the world. This is happening even in the body of Christ. But I'm saying is that when you feel that urge, before you go and call that friend that's going to benefit you, you know, spend 20 minutes in the presence of God. Just turn on the worship music and just begin to pour out to God, and you will see the difference. I've done it so many times, and I'm telling you right now that that's something. Before I go and read a book that's going to probably turn me on in my mind, it's real. These things happen. I say, okay, God, I put the music on and I get the word out and I read and I'm praying, and literally I feel different.
And I think for me, I think for me, you know, I've got 3 kids, so you know, I don't need to say my status. You know, and I think for me, if I'm going to be really real, okay, so I've grown up in a church, but obviously I've kind of, you know, strayed away a little bit at 3 kids and whatever, and I've had partners that I have been, you know, sexually active with, and I feel like for me, you know, when you sit next to a 29-year-old virgin, it can make you feel.
That's what I was about,
It can make you feel. What's the word? I need to get the right word. It can make you feel not unclean, but it can make you feel wow. But at the same time, there's the other side of me that says that's her journey. That's her journey. and you've got yours.
Yeah.
So I don't want no one who is listening to this
To feel,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
that's what I was gonna say.
to feel a way, to feel, because
Yeah.
even for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
even the way the world is now, society just right now, 2020, it's over sexualized.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that's in our faces 24/7. They don't see celibacy. That's not even cool to be celibate.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
they discourage.
Yeah.
So I don't want no one to feel who maybe they are not a virgin to feel any way. But what I can say in terms of somebody who is not a virgin, but somebody who also has gone through periods where I have just been abstinent from sex, I think it's about an understanding. And I'm going to say boldly, Dr. Heather is also my counsellor, right? So I'm going to call bold. I'm boldly speaking, right? And one of the things that she kind of really got into me with was soul ties. That when you sleep with a person, because when you have a level of understanding now, it's not just about not watching a certain movie.
Yeah.
It's about, okay, let me draw it back and understand why I'm abstaining from certain things. When you sleep with someone, just on a scientific level, when you sleep with them, you also sleep with all of their partners. Okay,
That's right.
this is just pure science. Now we take this in the spiritual realm. When you sleep with someone, okay, you're now sleeping with all of their partners, their spiritual partners.
Yeah.
So you're taking on their personalities, you're taking on their dysfunctions. So when you sleep with someone, yes, you've got the physical act, and yes, you've got the sinful act, but you've also got the spiritual soul tie. All right? So in terms of just me, when I have a level of understanding about a subject, my decision to abstain or my decision to live a certain life is based on my understanding. So for me as a single person, one of the things I actually was going to bring up later, but I'll bring it up now. It's about, I was going through a period in my kind of life, and I was like, I wasn't crying to God, but I was just like, oh, I need a decent man. All right? And then I and then I kind of went through a period where I had enough of men. I didn't like them, and I just wanted to work on me. And during that period, I went on Amazon and I started looking for books because I wanted to kind of understand what it meant to be single, and just be comfortable with being single. And this is one of the books that I actually got, Wholeness in Singleness. So what I'm trying to say is prevention is better than cure. So once you understand your wholeness in singleness and you're comfortable, because what it is, the urges in the night, the kind of, God, I need someone, is because you're not comfortable in being single. So I feel like it's about understanding that, be whole and be comfortable in being single. When you reach that point of wholeness, like what Dana was saying, it was transition journey. What you'll be surprised what will come your way. You'll be surprised what you attract. And I think it was Dr. Heather that was saying that you don't want to attract your other half, you want to attract your other whole.
That's right.
So I feel like as a single person who is also not a virgin, my reason to abstain would be based on my knowledge of soul ties and based on just me being comfortable in being single.
You know, another thing I wanted to say, just to add to that, one of the things that God dealt with me on was my wounds. And he said, Dana, you have to think about it as a single woman. Think of yourself, if you're in the ocean and you're bleeding, your blood starts to attract sharks, because sharks are sensitive to blood. So if you're out there, you know, bleeding emotionally, you know, you attract who you are.
That's right.
And
That's
I was really struggling, because I was like, you know, in the first, I would say, from about 18, 19, when I was out there ready, I was attracting the same kind of guys, not dating, but they're just weird. And I was really struggling, and the Lord said, stop looking at them. Literally, stop looking at them, but look at you. And as I started to close up those wounds, I found that they didn't even, I just had to say one word, because now we're going on, because I recognize by the sign of rejection. The place I'm in now is where guys would probably say hi to me, they would hear something from me, but you know, all of a sudden they just won't talk to me. And I was like, God, what is that about? Here goes the rejection again. And the Holy Spirit, you know, just to give you a few points that I started to deal with this week, he said, Dana, some people, you know, healing has a sound. Healing has an aroma. So if a shark comes up to you And the minute you open up your mouth, they can hear the healing in your voice. So they already know, can't mess with them. And that's where sometimes rejection comes in. So I need to encourage both my single, females out there and men, is that to recognize that, rejection, when you encounter rejection, you're thinking, why is it that nobody ever chooses me? Or why is it they always go for my friend and never me? You have to recognize that rejection is a capacity issue. And I've said this everywhere I've gone to and I've spoken about, is that rejection is just, when someone rejects you, it's not about you, it's about them. It's their inability. They lack the capacity to accommodate you as a person. When you think about a baby, in their mother's womb, when the womb starts to reject the baby, that's when it's time for the baby to come out. So when labor starts to manifest, it's because the womb is rejecting the baby. So when someone's rejecting you, they're just saying, we don't have the capacity to handle you. Another experience I had, funny enough, just last week, where, I spoke to someone who was like a potential, but after, towards the end of last year, I was like, you're not the one. But, still remaining cordial. So I just had a conversation, and what was quite interesting to me, they said to me, Dana, you are a Proverbs 31 woman. They started telling me all the things that they were saying. But here's the funny thing, but they still didn't see me as the one. So I said to God, so what's that about? They're saying all these things to me about me, doing all the things. I'm, amazing, I'm exciting, I'm inspirational. I do carry, the aroma of a wife. I carry myself like a wife. So God, what is the problem? And the Holy Spirit began to say to me, say, Dana, some people, they like the idea of you, but they don't have the capacity. They don't have the ability to carry you. So whilst they like you, whilst they think, oh my God, you'd be an amazing wife, they already know they can't handle it. They don't have the ability to birth you. Because the whole point of marriage is not just about birthing me into my greatness, but I've got to be able to birth you. And so, do you have the strength to carry me in my warfare? Because I already know that the calling that I have, what God's called me to do, it carries a level of warfare. Do you have the ability to fight for me? Because that's the purpose of a husband. You go before me. Whatever hits the house hits you first. Can you handle being my husband? And can I handle being your wife? Many times God says, the reason why I say no to that, because you are too immature. You don't have the capacity to handle him as a man. So what I always tell people is, when it comes to rejection, stop looking at rejection as a sense of you. It has nothing to do with your worth. It's all about process. It's all about purpose. And many times rejection, number one, it's God's protection. He sees ahead of time. He sees, you might think, oh my God, me and you, we look great now. But here's the thing, God sees ahead. God sees that in the next 5, 10, 15 years, that person will stop growing from you. He will stop growing. He or she will stop growing with you. So who you are now will be compatible for that person. But in 15, 20 years, when God shifts you and says, go to another country, they won't be able to handle that. So that's why in this place of being single, I've learned to handle the rejection.
That's right.